people ask me, what am I an activist for? Justice is usually my reply. My professor told me you can't be an activist for everything. He told me you can't be fighting to stop climate change, racial justice, and gender equality. That you have to choose what you want to do and devote to and only focus there. I used to be like that. I used to only fight for one issue at a time. But as I became more involved, I realized that they are all connected. From the words of author and activist Audre Lorde, there is no such thing as a single-issue struggle because we do not live single-issue lives. It all started with a stream, which I used to sit by as a troubled teen, battling with racism and drug addictions. The day I hit rock bottom, I bumped into a King County ecologist. He offered me a hand up the ladder. He gave me a job with the county doing ecological restoration. Before this, I did not see the worth of my life. I had bought into the lie that my life did not matter, that as a young black woman, that I was lesser than the rest of my society. But it was through restoration that I restored my value of self. I realized that if I, as one person, could create entire forests, my life was too valuable to waste on drugs. Once engaged in restoration, I began to realize how the same systems that told me I was worthless because I was black, or that I couldn't do this career because I was a woman, were responsible for the environmental degradation of the forests we restored. From there, my confidence in the ability to enact change blossomed. While in community college, during the years when Occupy and 99% were raising consciousness, many students were frustrated with the state of the economy and the rising cost of college. At the time, student debt had just hit $1 trillion, more than credit and mortgage debt combined. We did not know what to do. For a while, I was frustrated. For a while, I felt stuck, waiting for some type of savior. But I remembered words from Gandhi that said, you must be the change that you want to see in the world. So I started a student activist club, working on making college more affordable, so that we could be our own saviors. We went to town hall meetings to talk to council members about keeping state money for community college. We protested against student debt, and with the help of a few professors, we hosted a weekly teach-in. Many of these actions relieved a lot of the tension we were carrying, but they did not create immediate changes. It was here I realized activism is not just in the street. To create access for those who've been marginalized and barred out of the institution, and to share information and build community, this is how you sustain a movement and build a lasting network. Engaged in this work, I came across the same system that had told me I was worthless, who had degraded the forest in the name of profit, was now barring students out of an education. We began to tackle the system bit by bit. We realized every student we could graduate without debt was a step against the system. We realized textbooks were one of those unexpected expenses that make us choose between having supplies for class or having breakfast. So I created a book swap site where students could sell and trade books between each other. The point was to eliminate the bookstore, which would sell overpriced textbooks, buy them back for 10% of the cost you paid, and then sell them again for 50% more than what they paid you. Today, 3 years later, while the bookstore is still functioning, the site has over 1,700 members that have access to cheaper books. Next, we decided the lunch prices were too high for students. So we started a petition and gathered over 1,000 signatures, and I arranged a meeting with the cafeteria owner. Next quarter, the prices had not only been reduced, but a new budget bites program started for cheaper meals. Leaving the community college, I gained a new sense of being. I was no longer a victim of my circumstances, but rather I had agency to not only change my life, but those of others. Starting at UW was hard. At such a big college campus, I started to doubt my ability to enact change. As I began to learn more about climate change, I ran back into that same system that had oppressed myself and the forest and college students. Now it was perpetuating climate change, and that it was already affecting the poorest people on the planet, those least responsible for their emissions. I realized the biggest thing I can do to make a difference was to help stop climate change. At first, I believed we could do this through science. I started doing research in the department's labs, but I was working in a government lab that staring at these tiny snails named pteropods, which make up the majority of the zooplankton biomass in the entire ocean, that woke me up. Right there in the microscope, I could see with my own eyes these snails dissolving in the current state of the acidifying ocean due to climate change. It was then I realized science was not going to fix climate change, and I came back to activism. I started working with Divest UW, a group working to get our university to take their money out of the fossil fuel industry. We organized protests, sat in meetings with the institution, came to compromises, and still fought for agency and representation for the future. Although the work was different, the problem was the same. A large institution was acting unethical in pursuit of profit, in doing so, forsaking the community and endangering our health. It was then I started to realize the same oppressive patterns in the system. I started to see the same logical fallacies no one could explain. How can we measure a country's progress in gross domestic product when we live on a finite planet? There is not enough resources for everyone to develop like we have in America. So what happens when India wants to develop like we have? If everyone is equal, how come 1 in 3 black men are in jail and every 28 hours a black person gets shot by the police? These were uncomfortable questions that no one was answering for me. But then it started to become clear the answer was part of a larger systemic problem. A system built to fail because its cancerous growth at a rate that is unsustainable. A system that only works because it separates and divides. It puts men above women. It favors whites against others. It turns corporations into people who have more power than real people themselves. Here we are trying to be politically engaged, but what is the point of meeting your senators to plead your case on an issue when their minds have already been made up? Because their votes have been bought by lobbyists who gave them more money than I make in a year. They say we live in a democratic nation, but it is not democracy when money is a more powerful indicator than what you vote for. This was never more apparent than in the campaign to label GMOs. The polls before the campaign showed 66% in favor of labeling, but after 4 big bioengineering companies, including Monsanto, gave $22 million to destroy the campaign, the $8 million we raised from grassroots organizing started to look less substantial. Thousands had donated and volunteered to get it passed, but with the money from only 4 giant corporations, the campaign was smashed. And it was here I learned about the reality of our democracy and the supposed majority rule. If you have all the money, you can change the majority's mind, and this is problematic. This is the same problem I see impeding the progress of justice. On current trends, a new Oxfam report shows that by next year, 1% of the population will own more than the other 99%. This is not democracy, but a plutocracy. As Supreme Court Justice Louis Brandeis said, in the 19th century, we can either have democracy in this country, or we can have great wealth concentrated in the hands of few, but we cannot have both. So regardless of what we're fighting for, or if we care about different issues, our struggles in the system are the same. We need to regain democracy. We need to overturn Citizens United so that corporations are people. We need to publicly campaign so politicians do not have to sell out to corporations to make it into office. Our issues are different, but the struggle is the same. The struggle to be heard. The struggle to make a difference. We will succeed in achieving justice only when we win back democracy.